Hey guys, what's up? This is Jesse from Hayes Games, and this is part 3 of the video tutorial series on how to make a quiz game in Unity. If you guys haven't checked out my other videos, please go check them out. And also, if you like the content that I'm bringing you, please like, please subscribe, and please check out my apps down in the description below. They're free for both Google Play Store as well as the iOS App Store. Alright, with that out of the way. So in this video today, guys, we're going to start some C# programming. I know, finally! We're going to get started with it. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to create an empty game object. We're going to attach a script to it, and then that script is going to be responsible for displaying the score on the final page. All right, so let's get started. All right, guys. So everyone should have their projects opened up. So what do we need to do here? So what we need to do is we need to attach a script to a game object, and that game object is going to be responsible for collecting the correct answer score, storing it. That way on our final screen, we can display that answer score to the player. All right, so a lot of you guys are probably thinking, well, why don't we attach the script to the correct answer? And that would work actually. However, we would have a problem because in each scene, our correct answer would probably change depending on the button that we're using, and that means our script would have to change, and it would just make things complicated. And also, in the final screen, we wouldn't want to have the answer button in our final screen, and therefore we wouldn't be able to access the information from it. Because the way it works in Unity is your script has to be attached to a game object in the scene, and then in order for you to access it, you have to access it from in the scene from another game object. For all intents and purposes, that's how it mainly works most of the time. Okay, so what we're actually going to do, guys, is we're going to create another object, and we're going to create an empty game object. Okay, and we don't want to call it game object. I'm going to call it game manager. So it's like we are a quiz making game studio, and I wanted to hire a game manager, and the game manager's responsibility is to collect the correct answer score. All right, that's a good analogy. I don't know. It helps me understand it. I don't know if it helps you understand it. So we have our game manager object, but it doesn't have the script attached to it. So we actually have to add component, and we're gonna. It might not show up like that for you guys, but you're gonna type in script. It's going to be a new script, and we're gonna name this script. You cannot name the script the same thing as the game object. So we are going to name it very cleverly game management. So the game manager has the game management script attached to it. So make sure you guys hit create and add. If you click outside of this, it will not save your script, and then you could also name it incorrectly. And once you name your script, there's no going back. You would have to delete the script and then rename it. Okay, great. So you see our game management script showed up here. If you look at our game manager and the inspector, the game management script is attached to it. Great. So first, let's create a folder here, guys, because we want to keep everything nice and organized. And we're going to call this folder scripts. And we're going to drag our game management script in there. And then double click to open that. And then let's open our game management script. So this might take a moment if this is your first time opening Visual Studio. It does take a moment. Might take more than a moment. All right, so there we go. So this is Visual Studio, guys, all right? So it might be a little overwhelming if this is your first time in Visual Studio, but we're mainly going to be focusing right here, okay? So don't worry about all this other stuff up there. Just mainly focus right here. So right here at the top, what do we have? So these are Unity systems.collections, Unity engine. What does this mean? So these are called namespaces. So basically, Visual Studio needs access to the Unity engine, and by default, these are the things that it accesses. Now, we are going to be adding namespaces, not just quite yet, because by default, it doesn't load everything in there. Okay. The next thing we have down here is public class game management : mono behavior. So what is this? So we created a class game management when we created the script game management, and that is deriving from mono behavior. You really don't have to understand this right now, but just understand that's what it means. Okay. Then down here we have what is this green stuff? So this is actually comments. So this is not actually going to be ran when you run our script. This is not going to be ran. This is for If you want to comment on your script, very important if you're working in teams also, to explain what your script is doing and what each function may be doing. Okay, we're not going to really be doing that because we're having a relatively small program, and we're going to name everything implicitly, so it's going to be easy to understand. And then what we have here is void start and void update. So these are functions. Okay, so what is a function? So a function is basically, it's kind of like, so to use the analogy of we hired our game manager, we gave him the game management script, which you can think of like as the employee handbook. And so he opens the employee handbook and he has functions, or he has commands. I don't want to call them commands because that's not what they are, but he basically has commands or functions that he has to do. All right, so like void start, so that would mean on start, so when your game starts up, you're going to run your code, and that only happens one time. Okay, and then you have void update. In void update, you run actually every frame. So if your game is running 60 frames per second, that means 60 times a second, you will run this code. Okay, so we're not going to use these functions right now. We're actually going to be creating our own function. And I'm going to write the function out, guys, and then I'm going to explain to you what it means. All right? So just follow along with me, and then I'll explain to you what it means. Okay, so what did I just write? All right. So let's break it down step by step. So we have public. So what does public mean? So you can have your function be either public or private. So when it's public, it can be accessed by other scripts. And this is very important. A lot of times you want this to happen, okay? But sometimes you don't want that to happen. You don't want it to be accessed or changed by other scripts, and so you make it private, okay? So that's what public and private mean. And then you have void. So what is void? That just means we're not returning anything. This is not a return type. I am going to be using a return type, just not quite yet. So basically, we just wanted to run this code in here. We don't want it to return anything. And then I named my function correct answers, okay? So why did I name it this way? Now, I could have named it anything. I could have named it collect the correct answers. This is going to be correct answers, and I think that's named appropriately, okay? So why did I capitalize the first letter of each word? So this is the proper way to, the proper naming convention for functions. You want to make sure each first letter of each word is capitalized. Sorry, it's a mouthful. Okay, and then we have open and close parentheses. Okay, so the reason and there's going to be things in here. You can pass in values here. We are not going to be doing that, so we're just leaving it empty. But that is what that is for. And then we have down here the open and curly brackets, okay? So basically what this is telling Visual Studio is that we have a function called correct answers, and whatever is inside this open and closed curly bracket, we want you to run, okay? So it basically encapsulates your function, okay? So great, so we created our function, but now we need something to store our correct answers. So how do we store information in Unity? The way we do that is through variables. So I'm just creating some space up here. So variables. So we're going to go over just 3 types of variables, and these are some of the main variables that you're going to use. So the first type of variable that you use is called an int. So an int is any number, any integer from it could be 0, 5, negative 5. It's any whole number. And what would be a use case for integer? So a good use case for integer would be player health. So let's say we created an int, we named it health, and we set it to 100. And then we would say every time the enemy hits the player, we're going to minus 10 from it. So we would create a function down here that would take this health and minus from it. Okay, so that's a good use case for int. We're actually going to be using int as well, but it's going to be a little different looking. Another variable is a string. So why would we use a string? So we use a string sometimes if we wanted, let's say we're having a character creation scene, and we wanted to create a character and give it a name. So we would have an input box where you would type the name in, and it would collect it as a string variable. Okay, so you'd be like player name, and you don't have to type this out. I'm just kind of showing examples. And player name, okay? And then we could collect that name and then later on display it like above the character or like in a menu scene, something like that, okay? Another type of variable that we use a lot is a bool. So what is a bool? So a bool is a true or false statement. So what would be a use case for this? So a good use case for this would be if we had ads running in our scene. So it's like we had a mobile game where we had some mobile ads playing in our scene, and we wanted to unlock that through an in-app purchase, and we wanted to say whether if the ads were playing, then if it was purchased, then play the ads. If it wasn't purchased, then so what will we do? So we create say bool play ad, and then equal it to true. Okay, so that means if it was true, you would play the ad. If it was false, you wouldn't play the ad. Okay, so that's a use case for a bool. So we're actually creating an int. So I'm going to create it, and then I'm going to explain everything to you. Okay, so I'm going to create a static int correct answer score. Okay. All right, so what did you just write, Jesse? Okay, so why am I creating a static int? I'm creating a static int because if I didn't and we change scenes, this variable would go back to 0. So it only saves it in that scene, but when you go to the next scene, it's going to set it back to 0. Now I could create something called a Singleton Pattern, and that would solve this issue. However, that seems a little complicated for a first tutorial series. Might be a little complicated to you, so I'm not going to do that. And for our purposes, static int is fine. Okay. So basically that's what that means. And we're creating the int and then correct answer score. So why did I name it correct answer score, and why did I leave the first word all lowercase and the rest have an uppercase at the first letter? So this is the correct naming convention for variables, okay? So just get in the habit of writing it that way. You don't have to, but it's going to be an easy way to differentiate between variables and functions. Okay, because you can see they're named differently, and you can quickly look at these and say, okay, that's a function, that's a variable, okay? And I named it correct answer score because I think that's appropriate. What we're collecting is a correct answer score, okay? Great, so we're done, right? Not quite. So what do we have to do next? So we have to put this correct answer score inside of our function. So we're just going to type correct answer score, and you can see it auto-completes, right? Auto-completes, all right? And then you can look down here, guys. Something's missing. It's expecting a semicolon, okay? And I'm going to show you in a second something, okay? And then we're going to do plus equals 1. All right. So why did we do that, guys? So basically what we're saying is we're taking our correct answer score, okay? Currently what our correct answer score is and what it's equal to, and we're adding 1 to it. Now I know it looks a little backwards, but that is how you write it, okay? And you can see I purposely left out something here. If you go down here at the bottom, this is our error list, okay? So Visual Studio is telling us it expected a semicolon on line 31. So if you go to line 31, you can see you have a little red squiggly line and you're missing something. If we type our semicolon in, all is good in the world. All right, guys, so we have finished our first script, all right? Well, it's almost done. There's one other thing I want to do. So I want to be able to see our correct answer score and making sure our script is working. So an easy way to do that, guys, is actually inside our function, underneath where we collected our correct answer score, I want to write debug.log parentheses correct answer score. So what am I doing here? So debug.log is a way that we can display our display things, variables, or I could put a string in here, I could put whatever I want here, inside our console, inside the Unity editor. That way we can see if our script is working correctly, okay? All right, so and all I did was I wrote debug.log, and then I passed in the variable correct answer score after it has been added to it. So you can see. So we'll go up here, File, Save, All, or you can hit Control S, and then let's minimize this. And you know it worked when you get this little loading bar here. You know your script was properly saved. If you go to our game manager, you can see our game management script is there. Awesome. So let's click on the console here. You can see it's empty. If it's not empty, hit clear. And let's hit play on our scene. Hit play. Awesome. Now click on the first answer. It doesn't do anything. Click on the second answer. Oh, what happened? Why is it not working? Well, guys, because we didn't do something yet. All right. We didn't do something because when you're creating a function or you're creating a script, you have to be able to call upon it. So now you can see our script is right here. Public void correct answers, right? It's there. But there's no way to call on this script. So we want to call this script actually from our button. So what are we going to do, guys? So we're going to go up to our correct answer score here. And what we're going to do is we have an on-click event. So this is not going to be here. So what's going to show is it's going to say on-click. So basically, on clicking the button, we are going to access our game manager. So it's calling for an object here, guys. So we're going to drag in our game manager. Okay. And then and it says no function. So we're going to click down here. We're going to find our game management. And we're going to go to correct answers. Awesome, guys. And then just make sure you have file save. Get in the habit of doing that. All right, so now let's run our. So what's going to happen here, guys? Now that our this script is attached, this game object is attached to this button on the click event. When we click the button, it should run the script that is inside the game manager. Okay, so let's hit play. All right. Hit this button, no. And it worked, guys. You can see it debug.log the object 1. And if you click on it again, it will go 2, 3, and it'll keep going up and up and up and up and up. Now, obviously, that's not what we want to happen. But for right now, we're not going to create that. That's going to be for the next video. In the next video, we're actually going to be changing the scene. So we're going to create a scene manager that is going to be responsible for changing the scene and loading up a new question with a new set of answers. All right, so that's for the next video, guys. And once again, if you guys like the content that I'm bringing you, please like, please subscribe, and please check out my apps down in the description below. And I'll see you in the next one.